Welcome to the Ayrshire CND celebration event for the United Nations International Day of Peace. Thank you for tuning in to this event. I'm Arthur West and I'm the Secretary of Ayrshire CND, and I've got the pleasure of introducing the programme to those who have tuned in tonight. If I could just give some brief background to the event. Ayrshire CND have been working as part of the Ayrshire Peace Group for a number of years to do an annual event. It's usually been in a local community hall in Kilmarnock, where we've had a mixture of music and songs from a variety of people who have helped us over the last probably 15 years. And the Ayrshire Peace Group consisted of Ayrshire CND, but also some members of groups from the local faith communities in Kilmarnock. Now, the International Day of Peace is perhaps not the best known peace-related anniversary in the calendar, but it's very important because it was established in 1981 by a United Nations resolution, and the date was set for the 21st of September, so we're exactly on the anniversary. And when the International Day of Peace was established, the United Nations General Assembly, who voted on it, declared that the International Day of Peace shall henceforth be observed as a day of global ceasefire and non-violence, an invitation to all nations and people to honour a cessation of hostilities for the duration of the day. And what we've done in Ayrshire is sort of develop those themes. And what we use the day for is to mark the importance of peace in the world, peace in the home, and peace in the community. And that's allowed us to get a number of speakers from various projects down the years who are interested and involved in trying to create a more peaceful world at all levels, peaceful world, peaceful home, peaceful communities at all levels. And we've got a very a very good programme tonight. I should also just say that one of the stalwarts of United Nations Peace Day in our area, Hugh Stirling, who was a member of a local faith community in Kilmarnock, Hugh sadly passed away a few months ago, and we would mark Hugh's contribution tonight. So there's a mixture of music and poetry and some very important messages tonight. So I'm going to first of all ask Willie Sinclair, who's an active trade unionist, a member of the Musicians Union, but also a very well-known folk singer in our area and in the wider folk scene in the country. So Willie is going to open with a song, and I'll just pass over.
Hello, I'm going to sing a Tom Paxton song. Tom Paxton obviously is American, but he's very proud of his Scottish roots. I have messed around with the words of this song and made them slightly more Scottish and a bit less American. Nay offence, as they say. The voice that is singing this song is a mother, a pregnant mother, and I think it's always worth mentioning that in times of war, in times of toxic disasters, a female fetus of a pregnant woman has already got eggs developed in her body, and if exposure to the likes of radiation and other toxic events not only affect the person who's being exposed to them and her fetus, but also her fetus's offspring. So it's a very, very long-reaching toxic event. And on that cheery note. Strange rain falling around us all day, every day. Strange rain falling around us, and what will become knees, my bare knees, much too little to run. Bare knees, my bare knees, and what of my baby to come? We had the wrong kind of umbrella all day, every day. We had the wrong kind of umbrella, and what will become of my baby? Bare knees, my bare knees, much too little to run. Bare knees, my bare knees, and what of my baby to come? They're measuring death for a suit lot all day, every day. They're measuring death for a suit lot, and what will become of my baby? Bare knees, my bare knees, much too little to run. Bare knees, my bare knees, and what of my baby to come? What of my baby to come? What of my baby to come?
Thank you very much, Willie. A really moving song to get the event started. I should also say that thanks to Indie Live, yes, Cisco Bride for helping with the streaming arrangements tonight. And also I should say that if anybody would like to comment in the chat, feel free to do so, and we'll try and pick up on any points raised. And if we can't pick up on them tonight, we'd get back to people if it's an information inquiry or whatever. So if we now just move on in terms of the programme, if I can introduce Naomi McKay from the Anti-Racism Education Project, which is a very interesting project which works to combat racism through education and awareness raising. And Naomi is active in the trade union movement, and that's where I know Naomi from. So I'm very pleased that you've been able to come here tonight and speak about the project and the work it does. So without any further ado, I'll hand over to Naomi.
Thank you so much, Arthur, and thank you so much for having me. That was a beautiful song, William. Very moving. So my name is Naomi, and I was adopted to Sweden when I was about 2.5 years old. And growing up in a very white world, as a child of color, I always wondered what was going on in the world, because it wasn't the world that I really could see myself in. There was a lot of lack of representation of people that look like me. So human rights is something that I've always been really interested in. Maybe not racism as much, because you kind of distance yourself from something that is very that's very personal to you and very traumatizing for you. And then you look at other parts of human rights, and there's so many parts of human rights all over the world, people living in horrible conditions. And it's really important to understand that being an activist isn't always about doing something physically. It's also about learning and education, and just sitting, reading a book and learning and listening to people's experiences. That's also activism. And I think it's being played down a lot. And I think it's important that we remember that and give ourselves credit for listening and learning. So as everyone knows, what happened to George Floyd a year ago really shook the world. And I think it really shook the world in a way that it really needed to be shaken. A lot of people woke up, whatever you woke up to, whatever your opinion is of what happened, it still happened. And on the back of that, the Black Lives Matter movement grew a lot. And as a woman of color, and being locked in my house for a longer period of time, it just came natural to me to start learning more what is racism and who experiences it, and what can we do, what can I do for other people, and what can I do for myself, and what can I do to help white people understand. Because I often get the question, people ask, oh, what is it like to be a woman of color? Then I like to ask, what does it feel like to be white? And it's really impossible for me to tell you what it feels like to be a woman of color. I do have a lot of words for it, but none of them is going to make you experience what I'm experiencing. So it's really important to create these spaces where we can talk and have healthy conversations around racism and discrimination. So I created our anti-racism education, which is an online platform. It works like a library. It's on social media, both on Instagram and Facebook. And you can't comment, but you can go in and you can use it as your own personal library, have a read, because I feel that there's unhealthy conversations being had about racism. And it's a lot about taking in and learning, and even for people of color to learn and read. And I think in the last 6 months, I've been very active in racism, anti-racism, and talking on platforms that are not always that healthy. I really believe that these platforms should be led by people of color, and that's why I started doing it. But I also think that the way forward is not to be aggressive and hate on anyone, because it's not the people that are around right now, it's not their fault. What happened in the past is what we do going forward. So going around hating white people, that's not going to help me as a woman of color. But we work together. We need to talk about this. How can we help each other? And if someone doesn't understand something, then I'm very open to have these conversations and talk. So for me, lived experiences trumps any education. So if someone's studied racism for 40 years, and you have a 10-year-old child, that 10-year-old child of color has experience in what it's like to be a child of color. So obviously that trumps any education, and that's why we should listen to everyone and everyone's experiences. And I've met a lot of people who's asked me, can you prove that that was racism what you experienced? And then I like to counterpart, prove that it wasn't. So becoming an educator in such an online space as the last year has actually really opened a lot of doors. I'm creating curriculums for schools, anti-racism curriculums for schools. And while doing that, I do think that we can't forget about the teachers, the people that are teaching this, which are predominantly white people. And for them to teach children and nurture children in this, it's really important to back them up, and the headmasters, and really be involved in the schools. So I'm really excited about that. And coming back to talk about climate change, we've all heard about Greta and her amazing work. Being from Sweden is something I just get fed all the time. but it's something that a lot of young people feel so passionate about. And I think also in the last year, we've heard more and more young people come out really angry, and rightfully so. They're so angry in the state that we've left the planet and for the future generations. So it's not just racism that they're also angry about, but it is climate change and other things as well. And they're angry that they have to take charge in these things, and they have to learn about these things because the generations before them didn't bother changing anything for them. And I'm really happy to see young white people being really excited about learning about racism and what they can do for their fellow friends. And it's also really nurturing to teach them what they can do as an adult when they go into the working life to enhance lives for people of color. So it's important to understand that climate change is actually racist in itself as well. So I've just written a little thing I'm going to read. So climate change is racist in that the Western world has made sure that we can insure property and business against climate disasters. And those same insurance companies deny insurance to those in the regions worst hit by climate change, such as Malaysia and Bangladesh. It's the old saying of we need to look after our own first, on steroids, basically. So again, I'm gonna take it back to where I started, again, having these conversations. And that's why I've created anti-racism education online, and we can all come in and talk. And I don't think anything gets solved by doing nothing. I don't think anything gets solved by just talking really either, but by listening to other people's voices. So I have guest speakers that come in once a month, and the talks are sponsored by Unite Community West of Scotland. So they pay for these guests to come in and talk to me, and 100% of the money go to the speaker. And that's also something that I really would love to see people of color going into spaces, talking about their personal experiences and getting paid for it. Whereas a lot of people, there's a lot of white people writing books and talking about this, but they get paid. So it's a wonderful way to give back, to give something back. And the 2021 theme for the United International Day of Peace is recovering better for an equitable and sustainable world. And I think I've covered quite a lot of that. But I'm very, very open to having difficult chats. If anyone wants to have a one-on-one with me or talk in a group, I really welcome that, any topic.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Naomi. A really thought-provoking contribution. And as I said at the beginning, I mean, we've tended to use these events to talk about peace in the world, peace in the home, peace in the communities, and certainly in terms of peace in our world and peace in our communities, you know, the issues of racism and the difficulties it causes have to be met head on. So the project is really worthwhile, and I, for one, you know, would be continuing to support it through trade union channels and other channels. But thanks a lot for that contribution. So next, I'm just going to ask, Willie's going to do another song, and then I'm going to bring Dovetails in right after that. Jean's going to say a few words, but Willie's just going to do another song.
Hello again. Right, this song is one of my own. I stole the tune in the best traditions, and I didn't realise I had stolen the tune until afterwards. Also in the best traditions. I wrote it in 2003, not long after the invasion of Iraq by various people. Again, it's kind of Scottish-ified. The Geordie in the title is George W. Tony, you'll understand, would be Tony Blair, and Saddam is also gets a mention as well. Okay. I've sung this, sadly and unfortunately, for quite a long time now. Oh, aye, and there's a phrase, that a recurring phrase that starts the whole thing off, which Tommy Sheridan, during the Scottish Parliament's debate on the legality or otherwise of the impending war, invasion of Iraq, came up with the expression "wake up and smell the oil," which I thought was too good to throw away. Wake up and smell the black, black oil, for your day's going to war. With guns and planes and submarines, bold your day's going to war. In Palestine they're building walls through ancient olive groves, and in the east they've tamed the beast, a toothless dragon arose. Wake up and smell the black, black oil, her Tony's going to war, and by his side his GI bride, her Tony's going to war. In Palestine they're building walls through ancient olive groves, and in the east they've tamed the beast, a toothless dragon arose. Wake up and smell the black, black oil, for Saddam's going to war. The oil wells burn wherever you turn, and Saddam's going to war. In Palestine they're building walls through ancient olive groves, and in the east they've tamed the beast, a toothless dragon arose. Wake up and smell the black, black oil, her Gwen's are going to war, and in her name to be killed and maimed, her Gwen's are going to war. In Palestine they're building walls through ancient olive groves, and in the east they've tamed the beast, a toothless dragon arose. Wake up and smell the black, black oil.
Thanks very much, Willie. I've heard that song a number of times, and it's always very moving and very relevant, and a really powerful anti-war song, I think. So next, I'm pleased to say that Dovetails, Jean Rafferty from Dovetails is here today. Jean's going to speak about the work of the organisation, which undertakes in raising awareness about peace and justice issues through the use of the arts. And Dovetails is very much part of the Scottish peace movement and links in with other organisations. So Jean's going to speak a bit about the work of the organisation, and then there's a couple of people who are, who link in with Dovetails, who are part of the network. Chrys and Peter, who are going to do some poems for us. But so I'll just hand over to Jean to sort of begin the input.
Thank you very much, Arthur. It's lovely to be here. I think when we started Dovetails, we didn't know about the Scottish Peace Network, and it's great to work with colleagues. What we do is we use the arts. We try to do things which have a kind of lasting value. So we've produced a couple of anthologies, a pamphlet. We've got 2 online projects that people can look at. One which we did this year for the Treaty on the Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. That's called In the Shadow of the Bomb, and I'd recommend that you all have a look at it. It's terrific work on it. We also did an event in St Giles Cathedral, which Arthur was at. That was a bit of a climax for us. And when we're working with writers mostly, but musicians and artists of all kinds, and of course for them it's a way of getting their work out. And sometimes you do question, is this work worth doing? Because there won't be anybody watching this recording who will not agree with what we're asking for, which is that people actually talk instead of send in the tanks. One of our members recently, I was talking to her about maybe doing an event in Afghanistan because she'd lived and worked there for a long time. She said she was too angry, and I thought, I can understand that. I mean, you go and you talk to people about something and everybody says it's terrible, and what good does it do? The fact is that the politicians will continue to do what they're doing. Every single leader that we have had in the UK has grasped that idea of being a war leader. Tony Blair in Iraq, and even David Cameron got permission to send drones in somewhere. It's disgusting. But if you don't do it, then you've done nothing to move people away from that. So that's what I think. Even if one person hears it, it's worth doing it. I just remind people of the words of Pastor Niemöller in the Second World War, who said, first they came for the socialists and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me and there was no one left to speak for me. So we think that words matter, that words are important. And that's why I've brought along 2 wonderful poets tonight. The first is Peter A., who has done a lot of spoken word poetry, but who recently brought out a very beautiful and moving pamphlet called The Art of Insomnia. And our second poet is Chrys Salt, who organises the Big Lit Festival in Gatehouse of Fleet, which was our first live event for this whole year. I personally thought that Chrys was crazy to embark on it, but she did it and it was wonderful, and thank you very much. So I'll ask Peter first to unmute his microphone and read his poem. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Arthur, and all of the others involved in this peace-related organisation for inviting Dovetails. We obviously have common purposes. Some of the poetry all poets write can be a bit complicated, and I sometimes do that too. However, the poem that Jane asked me to do tonight doesn't require any kind of introduction or explanation, I think, because it's just so simple. sometimes I really like writing simple poems. This one's called None of the Above. None of the above. Am I Mars or Thor or any other god of war? Am I Jesus or Muhammad or some other kind of king of love? Alas, my friend, I'm none of the above. I am not Wilfred Owen, not Siegfried Sassoon, not a decorated hero or conscientious subjector. No, none of the above. Too old to be conscripted or have my bravery tested. So what am I doing, pretending to know why fighting should be ending? I have no authority, moral or expert, to criticise the country's war effort. I only know we tend to learn too late that humans were born for love, not hate. So I won't send anyone my love in a bullet. And I won't send anyone my love in a bomb. I won't show love by destroying their homeland. No, none of the above, my friends, none.
Thank you very much. And now I would ask Chrys to unmute. And she's going to read a very beautiful poem.
Thank you, Jean. And the Women in War event at Big Lit was absolutely wonderful, and it was great to have you there.
Thank you.
I'm particularly taken by your song, Willie, because one of my sons was mobilized to Iraq as a member of the Territorial Army in 2003. So as a pacifist mum, that didn't sit very easily with me. The poem I'm going to read is called Write Peace, and I wrote it to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima, August the 6th, 2005, because I was very taken by the story of a little girl called Sadako Sasaki, who had radiation sickness, and she thought that if she folded 1,000 paper cranes, she would survive. She folded 644, and her classmates folded the rest, and they raised money for a memorial which says, "This is our cry, this is our prayer for peace in this world. Write peace. Write peace on the wings of 1,000 white cranes. Light your lanterns. Set them adrift on the 7 rivers of Hiroshima. Light them for those so charred their gender can't be named, their eyeballs guttering down their cheeks like candle wax. Light your lanterns. Set them adrift on the 7 rivers of Hiroshima. Light them for the flayed flesh of the disappeared, hanging in flags from flaming skeletons of oleander. Light your lanterns. Set them adrift on the 7 rivers of Hiroshima. Light them for children, seared to bowel and bone under the black rain, who one by one stopped singing. Write peace on the wings of 1,000 white cranes. Light your lanterns. Set them adrift on the 7 rivers of Hiroshima. Thank you.
I mean, thank you very much to Jean for giving the background to Dovetails, and thanks to Peter and Chrys. It's difficult to know what to say. They're very moving poems, and I think really just highlight, you know, the power of poetry just in terms of conveying ideas and emotions. So thank you thank you very much for your contributions. So just before I bring in Gwen, our chair, to sort of sum up and with a vote of thanks, Willie's just going to do another song just before we do that part of the programme. Okay, Willie?
Thank you. How do you follow those amazing words? That's yeah, you use amazing words from somebody else. Hamish Henderson, yeah, one of my heroes. I'm not going to say any more about him. I met him once. He was eating a packet of crisps at the time, but I shook his hand. There's too many. There's a lot goes with that story, but never mind. Rock the wind in the clear day's dawning, blows the clouds, he'll stir gaudy o'er the bay. But there's mair nor a rock wind blowing through the great glen o' the world a day. It's a thought that would gather rottens o' the rogues that gang gallows fresh and gay. Tak the road and seek other lonens, for their ill place to sport and play. Oh, nae mair will the bonny callants merch stay warned though the braggarts cruise lay craw, or we winds frae Petite and Clachan mourn the ships sailing in the Brunel. Broken families in lands we've ferried, they will curse Scotland the brave, nae mair, nae mair. And a black boy fae nae anger things the fell gallows o' the burghers din. So come all ye at him wi' freedom, never heed what the hoodie crooks for do. In your house o' the bairns o' Adam, they will find bread, barley, brie and painted room. When McKay meets with friends in Springburn, all the roses and gains will turn to bloom. And the black boy fae nae anger dings the fell gallows o' the burghers doon.
Thanks very much, Willie. Willie's closed a number of Ayrshire-based events down the years for progressive causes with that song, and it's very, 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 very appropriate. So thanks again, Willie. I'm just saying I've had some texts and so on, just inquiries about the organisations that have spoken tonight. So as I said at the beginning, I'm sure it'll be okay with Naomi and Jean. We'll put we'll put information out about how people get more information, go on email lists and so on. So without any further ado, Gwen Sinclair, who is the chair of Ayrshire CND, I'll just introduce Gwen. I'll just bring Gwen into the event. Gwen's going to just sum up and do a vote of thanks. So Gwen, over to you.
Okay, thanks very much, Arthur. And that's been a really great night. And I think that the last song that was just on there from Willie was the Hamish Henderson song. Is probably one of my favourite songs. I think it's a really important thing to do that everyone should do, is look into the meaning behind the lyrics of that song. Find out myself that he actually wrote it when he was on a bus on the way to I think it was at Faslane demo. The words all came into his head, they sort of flowed into his mind like a really important message, and so I think that in itself is quite important. And I feel quite jealous that that Willie actually got to share a bucket of Chrys with him, because I'd love to have met him and shaken his hand. But there you go, you know, it didn't happen for me. But anyway, so yeah, today we're up, as we, you know, we're all celebrating, well, potentially celebrating, but also celebrating is a bit of a strange word, because what we're trying to do is raise awareness of and make a message go out across the world today. And actually that is what's happening. International Day of Peace is being observed around the globe in events like this and lots of other things that are happening today. The United Nations General Assembly wanted to declare this day an international day in the calendar, and as Arthur said earlier, a day devoted to strengthening the ideals of peace through observing 24 hours of non-violence and ceasefire. And this year, they have asked us to all think creatively and collectively and how we can transform our world into one that is more equal, that is more just, that's more equitable, more inclusive, more sustainable, and more healthy, considering the situation we've been in. A message made even more important just now than ever when we consider that during the past 18 months, the COVID-19 pandemic has taken over 4.5 million lives across the globe, which is absolutely horrendous. And let's not forget the people caught up in conflict zones are especially vulnerable to not having any access to healthcare, as well as the immediate dangers that they're living in day to day from conflict. So now more than ever, that ceasefire must happen to ensure people are not caught up in wars. And if they are, they have given access to life-saving vaccinations and treatments. Better still, let's stop these wars altogether. Let's make that one day, another day, and another day until it is no longer something that the world has to contend with. Because in the past 18 months has shown us that humanity has no reason to be in conflict with each other, since we know we now have two common enemies, one in the form of COVID-19 and the other in the form of climate change. And both of these we can only tackle effectively by working together. We must stop conflict and we must start working together to face up to the damage that both of these will do and will continue to do. And this can only be achieved with cooperation between nations, by helping each other and sharing ideas and resources. We need to do that now. There isn't really much more. We can't got time to wait. The International Day of Peace is probably the most important one that ever has been since they started doing this, as far as I'm concerned, with these two issues in mind, and where the messages which are being shared across the globe today should be headline news, encouraging everyone in the world to put these principles, which as Naomi said earlier, recovering better for an equitable and sustainable world. So I think you'll agree that it was refreshing tonight to hear words from a few people from different parts and different groups to come together tonight and to talk about the issues here. And I think it's refreshing to know that there are people who are working to do our very best to make these aims of United Nations Peace Day become a fact that's going to hopefully change the world. And obviously this year is a very special year for the United Nations, because in January they brought in the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. Now, what's interesting about that is that it means that the collective work of people across the world who got together to make that happen, made it happen. So I think the positive message from that alone is that it is amazing what people can do when they decide that they're going to make something really important happen and something to believe in. So don't ever assume that the collective, amount of people together believing in something won't make it happen. But basically, the powerful messages tonight from everyone, and the spoken word and the speeches and the songs from Willie Sinclair, it was absolutely lovely and so important, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And so thank you to every single one of you who came along to take part tonight, and also to everyone who watched at home. And a special thanks to independencelive.net for their work behind the scenes to put this together. And also, just as a final point, for anyone who's interested in finding out more about Ayrshire CND, please feel free to send an email to us. Excuse me, and it's ayrshire@gmail.com. We meet once a month and we warmly welcome new members. So thank you. And thank you to everybody again, and good night. Aichiva.